My name is Samuel Brooks, but most people just call me Grandpa Sam. I'm 72 years old, and on what should have been the most generous time of the year, Christmas, I learned exactly how cheaply loyalty can be priced. They called it their dream Christmas. White beaches, warm nights, perfect photos. They used my savings to make it happen. And when they came back, they handed me a used pillow wrapped in festive paper, smiled like it was a joke I was supposed to understand. That night, I slept on that pillow. Not because I was tired, but because I was thinking. Thinking about signatures. Thinking about accounts. Thinking about how generosity, when mistaken for weakness, needs a correction. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't confront anyone. I waited. Because on January 1st, while they were shopping like nothing had changed, their cards stopped working. Every store. Every swipe. And that's when they saw the receipt, with my name listed somewhere they never expected. I'm going to tell you what they did to me, how the people I supported celebrated Christmas without me, and how the new year delivered a lesson they couldn't return. But before I begin, tell me this in the comments. Where are you watching from today? To everyone who's ever been taken for granted, thank you for being here. And if this is your first time on the channel, subscribe and turn on notifications. This is where quiet patience becomes undeniable power. Now, let me tell you what that pillow really cost them. Let me take you back to November. That's when the planning started, though I wouldn't know that until much later. I was in my study, going through some old photo albums when my daughter-in-law, Jessica, knocked on the door. She had that look, the one that comes right before a favor. "Hey, Grandpa Brooks," she said, leaning against the doorframe with her phone in hand. "Can we talk about something?" I set the album down. "Of course. Come in." She sat across from me, and within seconds, my son Michael appeared too. Funny how that works. How they always seem to arrive together when money was involved. "So, Dad," Michael began, "Jess and I have been talking, and we really want to do something special for Christmas this year." I nodded. "That sounds nice." "We were thinking about taking the kids somewhere tropical," Jessica added, her eyes lighting up. "You know, make some real memories. White sand beaches, clear water, the whole thing." I smiled. "That does sound wonderful. You all deserve a good vacation." Michael leaned forward. "The thing is, it's a bit more expensive than we anticipated. And with the kids' school expenses and the new car payment—" "You need help," I finished for him. He exhaled like I'd just lifted a weight off his shoulders. "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, Dad. Family memories, you know? The kids are only young once." I looked at both of them. My son. The boy I'd worked double shifts to put through college. The man whose wedding I'd helped pay for. Whose first house came with a check I'd written without hesitation. "How much?" I asked. Jessica glanced at her phone. "We were thinking around 12,000 would cover everything. Flights, resort, activities, the works. We'd make it really count." $12,000. I'd spent less than that on my own living expenses for an entire year. But I'm not someone who counts pennies when it comes to family. Never have been. I've always believed that money spent on the people you love is never wasted. "All right," I said. "Let me see what I can do." Jessica practically leaped from her chair to hug me. "Oh my God, thank you so much. The kids are going to be so excited." "We really appreciate this, Dad," Michael added, shaking my hand like we'd just closed a business deal. "When are you thinking of going?" I asked. "Christmas week," Jessica said. "December 23rd through the 30th. Perfect timing, right?" I felt something shift in my chest. "Christmas week?" "Yeah," Michael said casually. "It's the best time to go. Everything's decorated, special events at the resort, the whole holiday vibe, but somewhere warm." "So you'll be gone for Christmas," I said slowly. Jessica waved her hand dismissively. "We'll celebrate early. We can do Christmas dinner on the 22nd or something. Same thing, really." It wasn't the same thing, but I didn't say that. I just nodded. "Sure, that works." They left my study talking about snorkeling lessons and beachside restaurants, their voices fading down the hallway. I sat there for a long time after they'd gone, staring at the photo album still open on my desk, a picture of Michael at age 7, sitting on my shoulders at the county fair. Another of his 10th birthday party, held in our backyard because we couldn't afford to rent a venue. One more of his high school graduation, my arm around him, both of us grinning. I closed the album. Then I opened my laptop and transferred $12,000 into Michael's account. The next day, I heard them on the phone with the resort, booking everything. 2 weeks later, Jessica showed me photos of the swimsuits she'd ordered. 3 weeks later, Michael asked if I could watch their dog while they were gone. Not once did anyone mention me coming along. Not once did anyone ask what I'd be doing for Christmas. It was like I'd become invisible, except when the bills needed paying. I didn't bring it up. I'm not one to beg for invitations or guilt people into including me. But I noticed everything. On December 22nd, they stopped by briefly. Jessica carried a casserole dish. "Early Christmas dinner," she announced, setting it on my kitchen counter. "It's that chicken thing you like." It wasn't the chicken thing I liked. It was something she'd found on Pinterest. We sat at my dining table, the same table where we'd hosted dozens of real Christmas dinners over the years, and ate quickly. They had packing to finish. Michael handed me a small gift bag. "Just a little something," he said. Inside was a generic greeting card and a gas station gift card for $25. $25. I'd just given them $12,000. I smiled. "Thank you." After dinner, they left. Jessica hugged me at the door. "We'll send you lots of pictures." And then they were gone. Christmas Eve, I woke up alone. Christmas Day, I made myself eggs. My phone lit up exactly 3 times. A text from an old friend, a spam call, and one photo from Jessica, her and Michael holding cocktails on a beach at sunset. The caption read, "Best Christmas ever." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I set my phone down, and I started thinking. They came back on December 30th, tanned, relaxed, glowing with that specific kind of satisfaction that comes from spending someone else's money without consequence. I didn't hear from them that day, or the next. It wasn't until January 2nd that my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Michael, Jessica, and their 2 kids standing on my porch. The kids ran past me into the house, already asking where I kept the cookies. "Hey, Dad," Michael said, stepping inside. "Happy New Year." Jessica followed, carrying a small wrapped box. "We brought you something." I closed the door. "You didn't have to do that." "Of course we did," she said, handing me the box. "Open it." The kids gathered around, watching with the kind of detached interest children have when they're told to pay attention to something boring. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a pillow, not a decorative one, not an expensive one, just a standard hotel-quality pillow, the kind you'd find in a budget chain. It still had a faint crease in the fabric. "It's from the resort," Jessica said brightly. "We thought you'd love it. Super comfortable. We used it the whole trip." I held the pillow in my hands. Used it the whole trip. $12,000, 7 nights in paradise, and they'd brought me back a used pillow. "It's nice," I said quietly. Michael clapped me on the shoulder. "Glad you like it, Dad. We would have gotten more stuff, but you know how luggage fees are." I nodded. "I understand." They stayed for about 20 minutes, showed me photos on Jessica's phone, talked about the buffet, the excursions, the kids' swimming lessons. Not once did they ask how my Christmas was. Not once did they thank me for making it possible. When they left, Jessica kissed my cheek. "Love you, Grandpa Brooks." I stood in the doorway and watched them drive away. Then I closed the door, locked it, and sat down in my living room with that pillow in my lap. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just sat there, running my hands over the fabric, feeling the weight of what I'd been given in exchange for my generosity. That night, I did sleep on it. Not because it was comfortable, but because I needed to feel exactly how little I was worth to them. And as I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, something crystallized in my mind. A plan. You see, I may be 72 years old, but I'm not senile. I know how bank accounts work. I know how authorized users work, and I know exactly what I'd signed when Michael asked me, years ago, to co-sign on his credit accounts just for emergencies. Those accounts had my name on them, not as a user, as an owner. I'd never thought much about it before. I trusted him, trusted them. But trust, I was learning, is a currency that runs out. And I still had access. The next morning, January 3rd, I made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at my computer, logged into the account portal, and I started reading. Every transaction, every purchase, every swipe. I saw the resort booking, the flights, the rental car, the spa treatments, the jewelry Jessica bought herself in the hotel gift shop, all paid for with money I'd transferred, money they'd never once acknowledged as mine. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of coffee, and clicked the button that read, Manage Authorized Users. It took less than 5 minutes. Michael's name, removed. Jessica's name, removed. Their cards, still active, still in their wallets, were now connected to nothing. I closed the laptop, and I waited. I didn't have to wait long. January 4th, 1:47 p.m. My phone rang. It was Michael. His voice was tight, confused. Dad, hey, something weird is happening. My card got declined at Target, then Jess's card got declined at the grocery store. Do you know if there's some kind of fraud alert or— No fraud, I said calmly. I removed you both from the account. Silence. You— What? I removed your access, I repeated. Those accounts are in my name. I decided I didn't want anyone else using them anymore. Dad, you can't just— I can, I interrupted, and I did. Jessica's voice exploded in the background. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Michael stammered. This is insane. We have bills to pay. We have— Then pay them, I said. With what? He shouted. I looked down at the pillow sitting on my couch. I don't know, Michael, I said softly. Maybe sell something you don't need. I hear used pillows go for a lot these days. And then I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. They showed up at my house the next morning. I was expecting it. I'd made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, and was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard the car pull into the driveway. The engine shut off abruptly, followed by car doors slamming with the kind of force that announces anger before words ever can. I took a sip of my coffee. The doorbell didn't ring. They used their key, the one I'd given them years ago, for emergencies. Michael stormed in first, Jessica right behind him. Their faces were flushed, eyes wild with the kind of panic that comes from suddenly losing access to money you thought would always be there. Dad, what the hell is going on? Michael shouted before he'd even made it fully into the kitchen. I set my mug down carefully. Good morning to you, too. Don't, Jessica snapped, pointing at me. Don't play games right now. You cut us off from everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? I looked at her calmly. I removed your access to accounts that have my name on them. That's what I've done. Those are our accounts, Michael said, his voice cracking. We've been using them for years. With my permission, I said, which I've now revoked. Jessica laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. This is unbelievable. You're seriously doing this over a pillow. We brought you a gift, and this is how you— It's not about the pillow, I interrupted. Then what? Michael demanded. What is this about? I stood up slowly, my joints protesting slightly, and walked to the counter. I picked up a piece of paper I'd printed the night before, a bank statement showing the $12,000 transfer dated November 28th. I set it on the table in front of them. This, I said, tapping the paper, is what I gave you in November. $12,000 for your dream Christmas vacation. They stared at the paper. We know, Michael said defensively. "And we're grateful, Dad. We really are." "Are you?" I asked. "Because gratitude usually comes with a thank you, maybe an invitation, at the very least a phone call on Christmas Day." Jessica crossed her arms. "We sent you pictures." "You sent me a picture," I corrected. "One, of you holding drinks on a beach, with a caption that said, 'Best Christmas Ever.'" "It was," Jessica said. "The kids had an amazing time. We made incredible memories." "Without me," I finished. The kitchen went quiet. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, you know you could have come if you wanted to." "Could I?" I asked. "Was I invited? Did anyone ask if I had plans? Did anyone think to say, 'Hey, Dad, we're using your money to have the best Christmas ever. Would you like to join us?'" "We assumed you'd want to stay here," Jessica said weakly. "You always spend Christmas at home." "Because I was always hosting Christmas at home," I said, my voice harder now, "cooking for everyone, buying gifts, making sure everyone had a good time. But this year I got to spend Christmas alone, eating eggs by myself, while you were on a beach celebrating with money I earned." Michael ran his hand through his hair. "Okay, fine. Maybe we should have handled it differently. But cutting us off completely? That's extreme, Dad. We have kids. We have bills. We have a mortgage." "Then pay it," I said simply. "With what?" Jessica exploded again. "You just killed our credit cards. We have groceries to buy, gas to put in the car, daycare to pay for." "You have jobs," I said. "Both of you." "That money's already allocated," Michael shouted. "Our paychecks are budgeted down to the dollar. Those credit lines were our safety net." I nodded slowly. "Your safety net, built on my credit, my name, my responsibility." "You never had a problem with it before," Jessica said accusingly. "That's because I trusted you before," I replied. "I thought I was helping family. I thought the people I supported would at least have the decency to value me as more than an ATM machine." Michael's face flushed darker. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I picked up the pillow from where I'd left it on the chair beside me. "You spent 7 nights in paradise, used my $12,000 for flights, resort fees, fancy dinners, excursions, and you came back and gave me this." I held up the pillow. "A used pillow, still creased from your luggage, and you smiled like it was generous." Jessica's jaw tightened. "It was a nice gesture." "It was an insult," I said quietly. "And you know it." She looked away. Michael tried a different approach. His voice softened, almost pleading. "Dad, I'm sorry, okay? You're right. We should have been more thoughtful. We should have included you. We messed up. But please, don't punish the kids for our mistake." And there it was, the guilt card. "The kids," I repeated. "Let me ask you something, Michael. When was the last time those kids visited me without being dragged along because you needed something?" He didn't answer. "When was the last time they called me just to talk? Sent me a drawing? Asked to spend the night?" Still nothing. "You use them as shields," I said. "Every time you need money, suddenly it's for the kids. Every time you want sympathy, it's about the kids. But when it comes to actually letting them have a relationship with me, you're nowhere to be found." Jessica's voice turned cold. "So this is revenge?" "No," I said. "This is a boundary." I walked back to my chair and sat down, suddenly feeling every one of my 72 years. "You're both adults," I continued. "You make good money. You can afford your lives. What you can't afford is the luxury of treating me like I'm disposable while using me as your personal bank." "So what now?" Michael asked bitterly. "We're just cut off forever?" "That's up to you," I said. "You're welcome in my life any time. But my wallet? That door is closed." Jessica grabbed her purse. "This is ridiculous. Come on, Michael." But Michael hesitated. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since he'd arrived. I saw something flicker in his eyes. Shame, maybe, or just the realization that the money was really gone. "Dad," he started. "Go home," I said gently. Figure out your finances. And when you're ready to have a real conversation, one that doesn't involve asking me for anything, you know where I am. Jessica was already at the door. Michael lingered another moment, then followed her. The door closed. The house fell silent. I sat there, hands wrapped around my coffee mug, staring at that used pillow on the chair. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. The calls started within hours. First, it was Michael's sister, my daughter Lauren, calling from 2 states away. "Dad, what is going on?" she asked, her tone caught between concern and accusation. "Michael just called me in tears saying you've completely cut him off financially." "Tears," I repeated flatly. "He's devastated, Dad. He says you won't even talk to him." I leaned back in my chair. "I talked to him this morning, for about 20 minutes. He didn't like what I had to say. He said you're punishing him over a Christmas gift." "He simplified the situation," I said. Lauren sighed. "Look, I don't know all the details, but this seems really extreme. Michael has a family. He has responsibilities." "So do I interrupted. "And one of them is not funding other people's lives indefinitely." "But he's your son." "Exactly," I said. "He's a grown man, with a job, and a wife who works. They don't need me to survive. They just want me to subsidize their lifestyle." There was a pause. Did something happen? So I told her. Not everything, just the broad strokes. The $12,000, the vacation I wasn't invited to, Christmas alone, the pillow. When I finished, Lauren was quiet for a long moment. "Oh," she finally said. "Yeah. That's pretty bad." "I thought so." Another pause. "But Dad, cutting off their credit cards? That's going to put them in a really tough spot." "Good," I said simply. "Maybe they'll learn to budget." Lauren didn't call back, but plenty of others did. Jessica's mother called, demanding to know why I was sabotaging her daughter's family. An old family friend called, saying she'd heard I was having some kind of episode, and should I see a doctor? Even my grandson, Michael's 11-year-old son, sent me a text message that was clearly dictated by one of his parents. "Grandpa, why are you being mean to Mom and Dad?" I didn't respond to most of them. The ones I did respond to, I kept it simple. "This is between me and Michael. I appreciate your concern." What surprised me most wasn't the pressure. It was how quickly I became the villain. In their version of the story, I was a bitter old man taking revenge over a misunderstanding. I was cruel, unreasonable, petty. Not once did anyone ask why I'd felt the need to set boundaries in the first place. By the end of the week, my phone had gone mostly quiet. No more angry calls, no more guilt trips, just silence. And honestly, it was the most peaceful I'd felt in years. I spent my days reading, taking walks, organizing the garage, doing all the small things I'd put off because I was always too busy worrying about everyone else. On January 10th, I went to the bank. I walked in and sat down with the same financial advisor I'd worked with for 15 years, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd helped me manage my retirement accounts. "Mr. Brooks," she said warmly, "good to see you. What can I help you with today?" "I want to review all my accounts," I said. "Every single one. And I want to remove any authorized users who aren't me." Her smile dimmed slightly. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I'm just simplifying." We spent the next hour going through my finances line by line, checking accounts, savings, credit cards, investment accounts. Michael's name was on 3 of them. By the time we finished, his name was on none. Patricia printed out the confirmation paperwork and slid it across the desk. "You're all set," she said. Then, more carefully, "Can I ask, is this about protecting yourself from something?" I looked at her. "It's about remembering who I worked for." She nodded slowly. "Understood." As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in months. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I made myself a real dinner: pan-seared salmon, roasted vegetables, a glass of wine. I set the table properly, cloth napkin, real silverware, the works, and I sat down alone. And it didn't feel lonely. It felt like dignity. I was halfway through my meal when my phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Dad, can we please talk? Really talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I set the phone face down on the table, and I finished my dinner in peace. He could wait. For once, I wasn't going to drop everything just because someone needed something from me. Later that night, after I'd cleaned up and settled into my armchair with a book, I finally picked up my phone. I read his message again. Then I typed a response. "Sunday, 2 p.m., my house, come alone." I hit send. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. A minute later, "Okay." I set the phone aside. Sunday was 3 days away. 3 days for him to think. 3 days for me to decide exactly what kind of relationship I was willing to have going forward. Because here's what I'd learned over the past week. Love isn't about how much money you're willing to give. It's about how much respect you're willing to demand. And I was done settling for less than I deserved. Even from my own son. Especially from my own son. I opened my book and started reading. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered what Sunday would bring. But whatever it was, I'd face it the same way I'd faced everything else recently. On my terms, with my dignity intact, and with the quiet certainty that I'd finally done what I should have done a long time ago. I'd chosen myself. Sunday arrived cold and gray. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat by the window watching the street. Waiting. At exactly 2 p.m., Michael's car pulled into the driveway. He came alone, like I'd asked. I watched him sit there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, staring at my front door like it was the entrance to a courtroom. Finally, he got out. I opened the door before he could knock. "Come in," I said. He stepped inside, and I noticed immediately how different he looked. Tired. Smaller, somehow. The arrogance that had carried him through our last conversation was gone. We sat in the living room. Not the kitchen this time. The kitchen was for family meals, casual conversations, comfort. This needed distance. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. I nodded, but didn't respond. He took a breath. "Dad, I've been doing a lot of thinking this week, and I need to say something." I waited. "You were right." The words hung in the air between us. "About all of it," he continued, his voice cracking slightly. "The vacation, Christmas, the pillow, the way we've treated you. I was so focused on what we needed, what we wanted, that I completely lost sight of you." I stayed silent. "Jessica and I sat down and went through our finances," he said. "Really went through them. And you know what we realized? We don't actually need your help. We never did. We just got comfortable taking it." He looked down at his hands. "We turned you into a backup plan instead of treating you like a father. Like a person who deserves respect and love, not just utility." His voice broke on that last word. I felt something shift in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. "When you cut us off," Michael continued, "I was angry. I thought you were being cruel. But then I had to actually face our bills, our spending, our choices. And I realized we've been living above our means for years because we always knew you'd catch us if we fell." He wiped his eyes quickly. "That vacation? We didn't need it. We wanted it. And instead of saving for it ourselves, we took your money and justified it by saying it was for the kids. But it wasn't. It was for us. For our Instagram photos and our bragging rights and our ego." I leaned forward slightly. "Why didn't you invite me, Michael?" He flinched. "Honestly?" "Honestly. Because—" He struggled with the words. "Because having you there would have reminded us that it was your money. It would have made us feel guilty. So we convinced ourselves you wouldn't want to come, that you'd be happier at home, that you understood." "But you never asked," I said softly. "No," he whispered. "We never asked." The silence that followed was heavy but not hostile. Finally, I spoke. "Michael, I didn't cut you off to punish you. I did it because I needed you to see me again. Not as a wallet, not as a safety net. As your father, as a human being who has feelings and needs and limits." He nodded, tears streaming down his face now. "I have spent my entire life giving," I continued. "To you, to your sister, to everyone I loved. And I never regretted a penny of it. But somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing the sacrifice. You stopped seeing me." "I know," he said. "And I'm so sorry, Dad." I reached over and put my hand on his shoulder. "I forgive you," I said. "But things can't go back to the way they were." He looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not going to be your financial backup anymore," I said firmly. "You're a capable man. You have a good job. Jessica has a good job. You can build the life you want on your own." "I understand," he said quickly. "I'm not asking for money, Dad. I'm asking for a relationship." "Good," I said, "because that's all I have left to give." He broke down then. Really broke down, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a child. And I let him. Because sometimes people need to feel the full weight of what they've done before they can truly change. After a while, he composed himself. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course." "The pillow," he said. "Did you really sleep on it?" I smiled faintly. "I did." "Why?" "Because I needed to know what you thought I was worth, and once I knew, I could decide what to do about it." He closed his eyes. "God, Dad, I'm so ashamed." "Don't be ashamed," I said. "Be better." He nodded. "I will. I promise." We sat together for a while longer, talking. Really talking. About his childhood, about mistakes I'd made as a father, about the ways we'd both failed each other. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. And honesty, I've learned, is the only foundation worth building on. Before he left, Michael hugged me at the door. "I love you, Dad," he said. "I love you too," I replied. "Now go home. Take care of your family, and call me next week just to talk. Not because you need something, just because." "I will," he promised. And as I watched him drive away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Not that everything would be perfect, but that maybe, finally, it could be real. 3 months have passed since that Sunday. Michael calls me every week, sometimes twice. We talk about sports, weather, his kids' soccer games, normal things, father and son things. He hasn't asked me for money once. Last month they invited me to dinner at their house, a real invitation, planned in advance with a handwritten card from my grandson. I went. Jessica apologized. Actually apologized. No excuses, no justifications. The kids showed me their school projects. We ate together, laughed together, and when I left, they walked me to my car and hugged me goodbye. No one handed me a bill. No one needed a favor. They just wanted my company. It felt like a miracle, but it wasn't a miracle. It was a boundary, enforced. It was respect, demanded. It was me, finally choosing myself. I still have that pillow, by the way. It sits on a chair in my study, not as a reminder of the insult, but as a reminder of the moment I decided I was worth more than I'd been accepting. Some people think I was too harsh, that I should have just talked to them instead of cutting them off. But here's what I've learned at 72 years old. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes generosity means withholding. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them struggle until they grow. I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. Because that Christmas, the one I spent alone, eating eggs in silence, taught me something invaluable. My worth isn't measured by what I give. It's measured by what I refuse to accept, and I refuse to accept being taken for granted ever again. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in my position? Have you ever given everything to someone, only to be handed scraps in return? Maybe it was family, Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was someone you loved who stopped seeing you as a person and started seeing you as a resource. If that's you, I want you to drop a comment right now and tell me your story. Because here's the truth. You are not alone. Thousands of people are watching this video right now, nodding their heads, feeling seen for the first time in years. And if you've made it this far, you deserve to know something. You are worth more than how people treat you when they need something. You are worth phone calls that don't come with requests. You are worth invitations that aren't afterthoughts. You are worth love that doesn't have a price tag attached. And if the people in your life can't see that, then maybe it's time they learned. Now, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because this channel is for people like us, people who've been underestimated, overlooked, and undervalued. And I'm going to keep telling stories that prove one thing. Quiet strength is the most powerful force in the world. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. If you've ever had to set a boundary like this, and what you would have done in my situation, I read every single comment, every one, and to everyone who's been taken for granted, walked over, or made to feel invisible. This is your permission slip to choose yourself. You don't owe anyone access to your peace. You don't owe anyone your resources without respect. And you certainly don't owe anyone an explanation for demanding better. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, the people who truly love you will understand boundaries. The ones who don't, well, they just showed you who they really are. Subscribe, comment, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next story, because we're just getting started.